we were talking about how we can pet them and petting them with a little bit of structure. Now for dogs, I consider petting a dog our way of paying the dog. Careful your finger doesn't go in.
No, we're good.
It's not? Okay.
You're good, you're good.
So right now, when you're driving, they kind of nudge you to move your arm so they can look out the window. When they want attention from you, they'll kind of come and scratch at you or they'll bark at you. So they're basically giving us a demand. Now because they're cute, we kind of ignore it and we don't see it as a negative, and we give them what they want. Well, just like a child, if you give the child everything it wants all the time, after a while it becomes petulant and it demands those things. And just for a human, you know, we talked about earlier having rules. We don't really have a lot of rules. And so if you had a job where they said, look, when we're hiring you, you're your own supervisor, you don't answer to anyone, and we're very forgetful, you have to remind us when it's time to pay you because we won't remember even if we paid you 2 minutes ago. Under that scenario, you're going to be a horrible staffer because you have no motivation to do what the company wants. You're going to do what you want. That's kind of what we have here. Your dogs do what they want, not what you want. And because they don't respect you as an authority figure, when they're barking and you tell them no, that's optional. I'm going to ignore her for right now because I disagree. So one of the things that I like to do is, like I mentioned, petting our dogs is our way of paying them. So next time they nudge you or scratch at you, instead of giving them what they want, ask them to sit, come, or lay down. Now for a dog, usually if they're doing those things, they're going to be right here. So we're not going to ask them to come in that situation. But if I want to give him some attention, her some attention, sit, sit.
What if we're in the car?
We'll talk about that. Let me go to that here in a second. So that might be something where you have to help and take over. Now in that case, maybe they don't get to look out the window and move your arm. Maybe they have to go to find a different location in the car to sit and look outside the window because you're driving for safety reasons. You don't want to. So we want to basically ask them to sit or lie down. So if they're nudging you here, maybe you call them to your side of the car, and then you ask them to sit on your lap, and when they do, then you lift them up so that he or she can look out the window.
Yeah.
So this way, they have to earn it. So right now, she just sat in front of me again, because that's what got her the treat last time. So what's going to happen is...
Yeah, she's a quick food learner.
Absolutely, I can tell. So one of the things I would recommend that you do is I come up with a watchword to help us, because you pet your dogs so often without a purpose, you won't even realize it.
Yeah.
So what I recommend for the petting with a purpose is to stop petting them altogether unless they do something for you. So if they just come by and they look cute and you want to pet them, you ask them to sit. Asking them to sit is not asking a lot.
Right.
As soon as they sit, we reach over, we pet them, and we say the word sit. The same time they sit down, that's what connects the two things together. And so if you come in the room and Bob says, paycheck, you immediately raise your hands and then ask the dog to sit. Even if you had asked the dog to sit before he came in the room, if you guys argue about whether or not you asked to sit and I did and I didn't, then they understand dissension. Dogs, very much the worst punishment for a dog is to be excluded from the group or be outside of the group. So if Bob comes in and say paycheck and you just go like this, sit, and then as soon as the dog sits, then you pet her again, say sit. Well, for dogs, asking them to sit isn't asking too much, but it's a more subordinate position for dogs. So it's almost a respectful or way of saying please almost. Matter of fact, when I go through this technique with kids, I say petting our dog is our way of saying thank you. So we would say thank you before we dog did something for us or after. So in this case, we would do it after, obviously. So as soon as he sits, or she sits, I reach down and I scratch under the chin. And I say the word sit at the same time. Now a dog, when it's proud about what it's done, its nose is parallel to the ground or tilted up. You've probably seen one of them with a bone or a toy walking around the house with their nose in the air. They feel really good about themselves. I want them to feel good about themselves doing the things that we want, sitting and lying down. Crash. So what will happen is after a while, just like she did, they're just going to come and start sitting in front of you saying, I'm sitting, shouldn't you be paying attention to me? And the answer is yes, at least whenever possible.
Now I'm laying down. How about that?
Crash. So, or whatever the word is that you want to use, down, I'm sorry. So what will happen is they're going to transition from scratching at you just to come and sitting or laying down in front of you. When they do that, we will reach over and say down within 3 seconds or sit within 3 seconds. Now, if you want
do we do it every time? I mean,
yes.
Does it ever get to a point where we don't have to do that?
After a while, you won't even think about it.
Just
Those come over, you'll raise your hand
because
over the
you're
head.
training yourself too.
Yeah, it becomes habit.
Okay.
This is what I try to do for my clients. I don't want to say cheating, but I'm going to help you cheat. So if you get in the habit of doing this, you won't even think about doing this. And the dog comes over, you put it in a sit and you pet it, and you're continuing to have your conversation with Bob. But every time you do that, that's a little mini training exercise you put no effort into that helps deepen the leader-follower relationship and helps build up more respect for you guys as authority figures. That's why I like to look for everyday things we can add structure to, and this is a powerful one because we're providing them with attention, something that they desperately like. So again, if you hear paycheck, you just immediately stop and then ask them to sit and then pet them for sitting again. If they're already sitting and you want to pet them just because you want to, I'll have to use this as a motivator. Come here. Sit. Sit. Yeah, you got it gypped there. But, so you ask them to move a little
It's
bit.
when I'm sitting.
Sit. 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 I couldn't give it to her where she was originally because she was already in the sitting position. So I had to get her to achieve a different state.
And
So all it takes is one step, getting the butt up and down, and then they're sitting again. Petting with a purpose is the easiest thing that you will do that will have the biggest return on investment on your dogs, especially for the time involved. Like I mentioned earlier, if you get in the habit of doing it, you wouldn't even think about doing it. You'll do it without saying a word, and if you do it hundreds of times throughout the day, after a while the dogs are going to sit more often to ask for it, and then when you're in a situation where they're excited, you tell them to sit, that muscle memory helps them make it easier for them, and they're, sure, I'll sit again. And then it's also helping them get used to compliance and listening to you, respecting you, and responding to you. So more than anything else, this is probably one of the best things that you can do because it takes so little time once you get in a habit. It's going to take you 2 or 3 days. You're going to find yourself, oh, I'm not supposed to pet, sit, sit, sit. But it is a powerful way.
Do they always get a treat?
Yeah, my
No,
kid keeps.
this can be reward by itself.
Okay.
Now, what I do is I put them into a sit like,
No, see,
Uh-oh.
they're gonna earn because she's very territorial with
It's
food.
her treat.
well, but it's my food. So if I want, I can do this.
So Eddie grabbed it.
Yeah, I'm letting him grab it.
Yeah, it was freaking.
So because I've established, I can actually invite and just drop it on the floor. He'll find it eventually. Not less hunting nose. But just because she sees it, doesn't mean that she can get it. I decide because I'm the authority figure. All right, so this is.
Yeah, they've gotten in.
No, I understand. We'll get into that here in a sec. I want to wrap up this video. So this is basically our little synopsis of petting with purpose.
Okay, cool.
I'm
Stop
gonna
it.
use the bathroom
Please.
real